really well done. I really enjoyed it. I'm a Spike Lee fan. I'm Ben Speggen for those that don't know me. But I think what it captured well, through a lot of humor, is the sometimes over-application of process and solution to a problem. That we try to sterilize it, try to quantify it, try to come up with a data-driven solution that we can calculate and quantify people. And I think ultimately with the ending message there being love is sometimes we lose the human element. We try to add it all up and try to solve a problem like that. So I think that for me was the immediate reaction I'm having to the film, other than Samuel L. Jackson was amazing in that.
Johnny Johnson. Spike does what he usually does. He sets the table, put all the food on it, and let you decide what you're going to eat. Okay? And it's through that process that you pick up what you want to pick up. You know, sometimes you pick up humor. You laugh at a little curse word or whatever is said. But you have to go beyond that and pick up the big picture. And the big picture is what's happening in our community. Not just Chicago, Erie, Houston, Texas, Dallas, Buffalo, places like that. So that's the point that he was trying to get to you. All that is good, but that's not the end result of the picture.
I'll build off that. I'm Jim Wertz. For me, part and parcel of this film is talking about how much we focus on the gun problem when the gun problem is really symptomatic of something much larger. And so the fact that the film itself creates such a focus and such a center so strongly on the gun problem while making the subtext of the film what the real problems are, the community problems, the social problems, the national problems. And so that's the challenge. As you say, Spike likes to put that out on the table and let you try to pick it up and do with it what you will. But John, earlier you mentioned do the right thing, and you kind of drew a comparison in the introduction. For me, this was much more like Bamboozled, if you've seen Bamboozled, with the satire and kind of the many role reversals that played within the film as well.
Not my first thought, but as the film went along, I had a moment, probably 3/4 of the way through it, where I thought, oh, this is a good Spike Lee film. This is what a good Spike Lee film looks like. I'm not a fan of Spike Lee generally. I think that the work, that most of his work starts off with really great intentions in there, and I'm always hopeful, and then in most of his films there's a moment where he just goes left and he loses me, and it's generally in his treatment of women. And this film actually was not misogynist, which is a new thing for Spike Lee. So I have to tell you that at this moment I'm just kind of processing that I actually saw a Spike Lee film that was good from beginning to end.
Yes, I'm with you. I'm generally not a big Spike Lee fan. I can't exactly put it into words, but for some reason about halfway through the film I want to go get popcorn and not come back. But I really enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I was going to. I can't wait until I can see it a couple more times with captions so I can understand everything that was said, because it went kind of fast for me. And I really appreciate the lyric, the way it was done. But I had a hard time. I'm 65 years old and can't understand everything being said that quickly. But I really, really like this a lot more than I thought I would.
Me too.
In general, I really love the movie, but I was wondering what you guys think. Did you think it made light of the situation and kind of, oversimplified the situation of what's going on in Chicago at all? And, is it really a movie that should be bringing people laughs?
I think one thing we have to remember that one of the purpose of the movie is entertainment. And I know a lot of you got entertained because I heard it. I heard the laughing, the clapping, the oohs and the ahs, and so on and so forth. That's great. But my idea about a movie is what is the redeeming value? What do I take away from that movie? And you know, when it got real rough with the cursing and the sex, the thing that came into my mind was, my grandma would take him out and whoop his butt. Because looking from a culture perspective, my grandmama would say, no, no, Spike, we don't do that. You know, so our culture has definitely changed. And you know, one of the things I also thought about too, you know, every time that we have a fire and they find out that there's no smoke detectors in the house, what do? They pass a law of smoke detectors. Well, why can't we do the same for guns? If guns are killing people, then why can't we pass a law and say, hey, you know, we need to get rid of guns? So, to me, that was the point that he did not address, maybe we can address it, is gun violence, and what do we do about it?
I guess artistically for me, the difference between comedy and tragedy is marriage and divorce. And is it a happy ending? Is it a sad ending? And so, you know, I think it's useful to be able to look at ourselves as flawed creatures and laugh at some of them, and laugh at our own struggles, laugh at our own problems, even though they may be deep and heavy. And I think artistically, it allows us to open ourselves up, to become comfortable to that. I think comedy makes us more comfortable in a moment, and then that's when it can really weigh upon us and shock us, and I think have more of a reaction. So yeah, I don't know if that's Spike Lee's intent in that, but I think that's how this works as a film. Yeah, I'm a fan of Lysistrata and Aristophanes' original. That's really close to it. That's a really good text interpretation of that. And so, you know, this is something that's written millennia ago, and so it still translates today. It still works. How do we stop war? Well, we stop that with a love message, and that's worked before. There's a reason the text was written, and it had an apparent application, and still translates to today, I suppose, where we see it here in Chicago. So, you know, I think artistically that's how it works for me as a comedy, where I'm not worried that I'm laughing at a film that's also trying to make me think and recognize our own problems.
It strikes me as kind of ironic too. You use the phrase, you know, oversimplified in film. Don't take offense to this, John. Film is our most oversimplified artistic form, so it's ironic that a film about gun violence you refer to as oversimplified, when often when we talk about it in the community, we're presented with oversimplified approaches, oversimplified solutions. We oversimplify the problem. We want to talk about it as a gun problem, not as other problems. And so maybe there was something in there, something to be said for how simplified the style of the film made the issue.
And I did not, I actually thought the opposite. I was waiting for the simplification, but the funeral scene laid out every major structural problem that contributes to gun violence in society. I mean, for God's sake, they mentioned corporations. I really was sitting there thinking, I cannot believe that this is being stated in a mainstream film in this way. And then he kept going. It was point after point after point after point. I found it amazing. I really did. And so the comedy part of it, I actually liked, because I think the comedy part of it tamped down the potential for misogyny. Because the idea, though Lysistrata is, is a Greek myth. You know, it's a myth. It's a tale, right? It's a comedy. Even though it is that, my fear was that it was not going to be played for laughs, and that the forward movement of the Black community was once again going to be placed upon the bodies of Black women, right? As if it is our role to be prone, or it is our role is only sexual service to men in the forward movement of the Black community. The comedy part of this actually played that down. And I think it made the audience remember that that part of it is a joke. None of the rest of it is a joke. But that part is a joke, because it's not the role of women to either have sex for the men who are out there fighting for liberation, or withhold sex to make sure that they do. So I actually liked the balance. I thought that it made it not a Spike Lee film. Or maybe I shouldn't say that. It made it an evolution of Spike Lee's filmmaking.
Was it problematic for anyone? But since you brought it up, and the sermon about corporatism and about gun culture, the fact that it had to come from John Cusack.
Yes,
Well, I mean,
yes,
I mean,
yes.
John Cusack is the white Jeremiah, right?
Yeah,
Could
yeah.
I say
Yeah.
something
Well,
about that? Could I say something about that character? That is based on a very real character.
Father Fleeger.
Father Fleeger. It just happened, very ironically, yesterday, I think. There was something on Facebook about this man who has been a priest. I mean, he's in his mid-60s. He has been at that parish in Chicago, St. Sabina's, same parish, that's the real place. Those are the things he does and he says. So that all of that stuff, I think, probably comes right from him and his sermons. And I found that amazing, that Spike Lee could take that and put it in it. And to know that he is truly real. And he tries to, and he says that, and he's trying to make a difference, does he, though, however. And going back to Lysistrata, I mean, I think if we take it as really, I mean, Lysistrata is a story that was written how many thousands of years ago, and it is written as a spoof. But I think Spike Lee is trying to show us that in order to make a difference, we have to work as a community, and we have to do something that might be really painful and might take more energy than any of us would ever be willing to commit. And I think that's the story that he's trying to tell too. I think that how real and how difficult, and we have to realize that.
You know, I'm glad that you brought it up because in the movie, it was a sense of community. Community solves problems. Government don't solve problems, community solve problems. So, you know, that really hit me when the community got together, men, women, boys, girls, and said, hey, this has to stop. We face that same problem today in Erie because we have people who don't want to snitch. We have people who don't want to talk. You know, so how do we come together as a community? Now, I'm not talking about unified Erie police department. How do we come together as a community to make our community better? That we won't be going to funerals, we'll be going to proms, graduations, and weddings.
The guy behind you
Let's
had
go
his
with
hand
Big.
up for a while, then we'll come back.
I think, I didn't like the way it is for my own reasons. A friend of mine was killed one day. And he was an artist. This is in Cleveland. And people keep telling me how bad it is, and I just don't go back there. But I was in Chicago for a while, back 20 years ago, and witnessed how violent it was then. And people are forgetting that these guys aren't doing this stuff because they want to do it. You know what I'm saying? People back in the day when Aristophanes was writing, they were trying to become the dominant power in that area. These guys do not control the superstructure of this country. The guys that are killing themselves, everybody talks about them, but they never get a voice in any of this stuff. These guys, I mean, the ending of this to me was so devastating because, yeah, he was accepting a measure of responsibility and whatnot, but that dude's story, his internal story will never be told or accepted. It's like until somebody shoots at you with the intention of killing you, and you have to deal with that type of anger, there's no way that you can understand how much of a victim a person like that actually is, especially to be a black man in America. Because the whole superstructure tells everybody, including your woman, that you are worthless and worthy to be killed. And you have to look at other black men and deal with them with the same materials in their minds and find some kind of way. I mean, their biggest problem in Chicago is that there is so much pressure on arresting people. The system is so good at arresting black men that their gangs can't get themselves organized enough so they can establish their own equilibrium. So they're not killing each other like that. And you can say we can change the system and things like that, but I don't want to say they're not responsible at all, but I mean, that's exceedingly difficult And we've never had a moment in society like we're seeing now in these major cities across America. And that's one of the reasons why I fear so much about what's going on in Erie now, because we're just seeing, this is just a little bit, and it's nothing compared to what's happening in Cleveland and Chicago, especially Chicago right now. But we have to remember, it's still, the fundamental problem is, America still objectifies, over-objectifies black men. And we can, the way the movie portrays it, it's more like our choice, and it's not. There is some degree of choice because we're human beings. These guys, the average person, let alone the average American, is not some intellectual. You know what I'm saying? We all have, if somebody tries to kill you, I can bet it'll be really, really hard for you to ever forgive them. And these people are dealing with that every day, every moment, and the fact that the police treat them the same way, no matter what you've done or where you are. So I would just put that out there.
But I do think that what Spike Lee was doing in this was presenting the system, very clearly presenting the system in which these behaviors are not only, are not just accepted, but they are in fact reinforced. So part of what we saw in this, in terms of gender, was a demonstration of the power, the negative power of toxic masculinity, particularly black male toxic masculinity, right? And at the end, where the mother is saying to him, be a good man, she is asking him to redefine masculinity away from the toxicity into which he was steeped. And so I understand what you're saying, I do, I get it, but I think that he set this up pretty well with a discussion about systems before we got to that point. And I think that there was a display all along of the negative power of toxic masculinity with, as the other characters start to think about and reflect upon their behaviors and the damage that those behaviors did to themselves, their families, the community, then I think we start to see a moving out of that. But I disagree. I think that I think he set it up quite well.
I agree with that, and especially the fact that you take the strongest, most masculine of the characters, and then have that person ask everyone else to be able to do the same thing, to accept the same sort of level of blame as he's being marched through. He's being paraded out, essentially calling upon everybody else to do the same thing, to really look at being masculine, being powerful in that way. And so you take a system that has evolved out of necessity or fear of necessity, that it can't work in a system that's broken, and now you're creating a different system within that, and really redefining it, and you're using the principal character for that. I think you're absolutely right with that.
They touched on putting men back to work. Okay, they also talked a little bit about the mindset, but that's one way of, Spike is showing that is one way of turning things around. But if you put jobs, and it's our cultural change that we have to start thinking, within our governments, so that instead of putting guns in people's hands, and this is all communities, we put shovels in their hands. I'm just using that as okay? If you're busy, you don't have time to get in trouble. You're gonna be working together. But it has to be a mindset that is taught. They talked about a little education. Education and putting people to work is gonna clear up a lot of our problems in this country. Are guns gonna go away? No. I have guns. Am I giving them up? No. But I think if we change our way of thinking in all our governments and start putting jobs back into our communities, we're going to see a lot of this disappear.
Well,
You talk about, no, wait a minute. You talk about the 100 men march. There, 1 million men march on Washington. What is that going to do? Why don't the 1 million men go to these places like Chicago, Boston, Philadelphia, okay, where people are killing each other? talk to them that way. So, you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I think what I take away from that is that it's really an economic development solution, not necessarily a social solution. Until you have employment, until you have jobs. If you've never felt the pressure, I mean, Big Wash was talking about the idea of you've never felt the pressure until somebody shoots at you and what that feels like. And if you've never felt the pressure of choosing between groceries and an electricity bill, that's a struggle, and that can lead to, and you know, I don't know that the movie really explores that, but I think that can lead into the idea of, that's where crime becomes more prevalent in the community, because that becomes a way of life of, well, I will use brute force to go take something that's not mine, because I have to survive. It's a survivalist element. You know, and I didn't grow up in urban poverty, but I grew up in rural poverty, and I know what that's like to have that pinch, that sting of, are we going to make it to next month? And I think that's what you're identifying with jobs. If you look to a solution for jobs, jobs are what we look for instead of guns.
I can guarantee you, if you put people to work, half of it's gonna go away.
Well, we talk all the time about jobs. We talk about the importance of getting jobs back into these communities, and of course that's important. But one thing that the film highlights, and the one thing that we never talk about, is that many of the kids that are involved in this type of violence feel like they have a job. This is their job to do. They're involved in the underground, they're working in the underground economy, and that in and of itself is problematic, because culturally we've led them to believe that that's a more lucrative option than going and working in working in the mainstream.
Not just that, there's proof of it, right?
Yeah.
They make more money than we do. Right?
Well, and what is, I don't know, I mean, the ending of the film was kind of problematic for me, I like that word, just because, yes, he's like owning up and he's encouraging everyone to own up, but he's going to prison. And
To the corporate prison that the priest talked about
Right.
during the funeral.
right, he's going to this, but like when you go to prison, like what are your real options after that? Like even if you are rehabilitated and you serve your time, being a convicted felon out in the community is like, oh yeah, everybody's gonna be throwing jobs at you, and they're gonna be the kind of jobs where you can, you know, support a family of 5. I don't know, I didn't like that part, because I just felt like, okay, owning up and going to prison is the conclusion of his story. It just seemed like, I mean, it's sad, and it is a comment on the system in a way that, yeah, he's headed to kind of a dead end, really, and that is the reality for a lot of the people that end up owning up.
Yeah.
Well, you know, re-entry is a systematic problem,
Yeah.
okay? So the system has to fix that, okay? Now, the other thing that I saw was the really finality of the movie. The end result of putting everything together was a spiritual thing that he ended with, love, okay? Out of everything that happened, the last thing that he said was LOVE. And if any of you knows Sister Mary Beth Kennedy, we sing a song when we go to visit her. And she says that love will change the world. It won't be quick, nor will it be easy, but love will change the world. So I'm glad that he put that spiritual thing in there.
I guess maybe I'm an optimist here at the ending, and looking at it and saying it's going to work, but I think artistically the fact that everybody's gathered, there's this uniformity of from the gang members to the mayor, everybody's gathered together, and maybe this is the first small step toward fixing a much bigger and complicated problem. I don't think that we can tie it up with a nice little bow at the end, but I think that's my hope of, if there's, you know, Chi-Raq Part 2, things look pretty good after we've taken a while to redefine the system and work in the system, that the fact that everybody top to bottom is unified at the end.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, and also, I think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt anybody.
Go ahead.
Okay, just my last comment.
Roll on.
When I was watching this, I kept thinking, like, this is like a time capsule movie. It's such a snapshot of, like, right now, and it's a beautiful piece of art. Like, it was so, like, the prose, the way that it was, I mean, the music and the prose and the visuals and the acting, I mean, it was so wonderful as this piece of art that was tying on this old Greek story. Watch it in 200 years when our society is in a different place. I think that this will be timeless. Like, I think it will be a timeless look back at a time in our history where we're gonna be like, wow, look how far we've come, at least. That was the optimistic
I'll
part
go
that
ahead
I
and
had.
give a depressive answer to this now. The fact that Lisa Serrano still translates to today shows we haven't come far at all as humanity.
I am a Spike Lee fan, and artistically, I think this film really sort of summed up his genius, which is binaries. You're laughing, and at the same time, this shit is real. And for that, I commend it, and I think this is the first time I'm viewing it, and I want to keep watching it. Specifically, and I find it interesting that on this panel, I was happy, I actually, before I was looking at it, I saw there was a panel, I was like, I wonder if there will actually be minorities on the panel to talk with after, because often I find myself, as someone who identifies as an ally in this Black movement that has been going on for centuries now, that I end up talking mostly about these issues with other white people and how annoying that is. And specifically, ma'am, I'm sorry, I cannot recollect your name, but
Rhonda Matthews.
I wish Bell Hooks was here. Because I want to hear about the white supremacist, capitalist, misogynistic aspect of this film and what's going on there. And like I said, I love Spike Lee, but the fact that he made women the center of this film is, I've never seen so many Black and brown women in this movie in any movie ever, other than a documentary. I mean, that alone is, kind of brings me back to this theme of this binary, is alone sad and fulfilling at the same time. So I guess, sorry, I'm ranting now. I'm really curious to hear your perspective specifically about minority women playing a part in Hollywood.
Well, let me say this, that I had a moment in the movie where I thought, I am loving this Black political moment in popular culture. Beyonce, well, Kendrick Lamar, Beyonce, Chi-Raq. I mean, these images that that we are seeing in popular culture, I can say we've not seen before in mainstream culture. So one of the reasons that, let me talk about Beyonce for just a second, and the way people lost their fucking minds, you know, after after this Formation video, right? The reason that a lot of white people lost their minds in the negative sense of losing your mind was because this was a Black moment that had nothing to do with anybody else other than Black people. And white people have never seen that before. Right? It happens in our homes all the time. But on the national stage, no. And so there's a quote about, you know, when you don't recognize equality, when you don't recognize equality, when you see it, it looks like oppression. And I think that is in part what that response was, right? White people don't know what equality looks like in Black communities, and so when they see some form of equality, and I'm talking about people who are uneducated, and when I say uneducated, I don't mean formal education. I mean people who really don't have much meaningful contact with, you know, people in other communities. So this was like that to me, right? With the exception of the Father Flieger character. What is his name? What's his name? No, the character's name. No, the character's name. No, that's the real person. The priest. I don't want to say the white guy. But that, you know, he's really the only one with him and the mayor, right? And the mayor is a buffoon, and John Cusack's character kind of brings the knowledge. So what I think of it is that this is a unique moment. And I am amazed that it's Spike Lee who gave it to us in a feature-length film. I really am. I am. You know.
I'm astonished, so I'm happy to hear
I
that
am.
someone else is too.
I am.
Look at this photo, there's 5 black women on the screen right now.
Mhm.
What the fuck?
Mhm.
Well, who else would give it to us? There's Spike Lee and Tyler Perry, so.
Well, we know Tyler Perry. He's not gonna give
Father
us.
Mike Ford.
Well, no, Tyler Perry will give us, Tyler Perry could do it, but Tyler Perry would be all be men dressed as women.
That's right, it's true. Well, you know, but in the past, when we have seen the human portrayal of African American women, it's generally been done by a Jewish man.
Mhm.
Steven Spielberg gave us The Color Purple,
Yeah.
right? So this is the first time that I have seen it in a mainstream film. It's the first time I've seen it, and I think that the primary, and I'll shut up in just a minute. I think that there is something that is missing here. I think that there's a message that's missing that I took away from it, and that is that social change in any community will not and cannot occur without women. And that is a thing we in our history, regardless of community in the United States, women's participation is always placed on the back burner. Like, we talk about Rosa Parks, like we call her the mother of the civil rights movement. She was not the mother, she was not nurturing, that was a badass woman who made the plan. She was integral in the planning of the civil rights movement, and we relegate her to a person who was just tired that day and wasn't gonna take it anymore. She was too tired to get off the bus. No, that was a calculated decision. And so we remove women from social change when in fact they're often at the forefront. We just kind of move them aside in favor of masculinity and masculine images. And so one of my major takeaways is that you can't have change without women, not meaningful change.
I was gonna say that transcends film too. So yeah, I think one of the most astonishing things, really cool things to see, is a lot of attention is being paid to the work of Michelle Alexander, and she's now teaching out at Ohio State University. So New Jim Crow, awesome book, you have to read it. And then also Danielle Allen, who's now the chair of the poli-sci program at Harvard, who is one of the top 5 smartest people alive right now. And so it's really refreshing to see that not just in film that you're seeing powerful black women have a very strong voice all throughout it, especially in academia now. It's amazing.
If I can move towards like the reality of the thing, with all the real situations that go on and the real activism and how effective that is and how ineffective that is at times, have we reached a point where we might even need something as ridiculous as a sex strike to happen to cause valid, real change?
That's for me, huh? Go ahead.
Okay, talking about a real, I like this movie. In some ways I liked it, some ways I didn't. I was sitting there and I was having flashbacks. Okay? I thought Spike Lee did an outstanding job with his opening. That was Tupac and Biggie there, Gangsta War, 25 years ago. The incident where the salesman came around selling insurance, I lived through that. I saw that. That was a major issue for us out in LA back in the 80s. The Patty getting murdered, been there. I solved those cases when I was out in LA. That's an easy case to solve. It's pretty dramatic or showed me that Patty's definitely solved relatively quickly. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. You're right, sir, when you talk about the community's going to solve it, it's going to help it. When you work a homicide case, there's only 3 ways to solve a homicide case. You get witnesses, you get the community, you get stuff that you follow up on. 2, you get forensics. And then 3, you get an admission. In this case, this was solved by admission. We finally admitted to kill it. But it could have been solved a lot easier. I liked it. I think not sure where in perspective. I got a couple of research students listening, and statistically, it's a whole lot safer this today in big cities than it was back in the 80s. What were the numbers for homicide in Chicago?
In 1980, there were 851 homicide and manslaughter. Last year there were 424.
So there's less murders nowadays. It really is. Back in the 80s, there was over 20,000 murders in the United States. This last year, it was 14,000. Way too many. Way too many. Okay? But it is a safer society nowadays. We got more TV now. I just want to say, I liked it. There was a lot of realism, a lot of good stuff in there. I'm sitting back here, my pulse is going up. I'm having flashbacks. I got just as mad today with that salesman as I did back then. All right, that was ridiculous. Okay. Their job, somebody mentioned, these gang members, their job is to protect their neighborhood. They see themselves as gladiators, protecting their neighborhood. You're going to be hard to break. You're going to be hard to break. I think just for what it's worth, somebody was saying that.
I don't, to answer your question, I don't, no. It's not a, it's not even remotely realistic. It would be a great, I think if women had community like that, then I think that it would be a thing that could be done. But the idea that a woman's power lies in her sex, in her withholding or providing access to sex and sexual contact is the biggest bill of goods that our culture has sold us. If women were to do this now, the incidence of rape would go up, right? And it's already high, right? And as would the lack of attention to that type of violence against women. So no, I don't think so. And then the other thing was that when I was thinking about this, and the women were saying, well, the men were saying, well, what the women want this dick, and I was like, there's vibrators and dildos. We just need some vibrating dildos, strap-ons, and batteries. They're good, right? I mean, and part of what I was thinking about this is that, that's one of the things that made me think, this is just, it's just satire. It's meant to be comedy, but I think no, nothing like this could actually happen. Although I do think, not in terms of sex, but I do think that the community of women could, for instance, stop particular behaviors, right? Change behaviors by not accessing certain behaviors. For instance, shaming about sexual behavior, buying into beauty ideals, etc. Right? But that takes a community of women. And once those things change, other things will change. And we already have the statistics, right? When women do better, when women and children do better, the community does better, the state does better, and on up through the nation. So it's women that make change in nations.
Yeah, for all that the movie did, I think it cast an amazing blind eye towards anything concerning these supposedly hard-ass gang members. When their women shut them off, they just said, well, okay, that's it. I guess I'll just walk away from it. Where, in real life, I don't think it would have been quite that nonviolent.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the things that I would like to see before I'm in a casket and they're moving me out, is the point is, what point in time will we have true American history? At what point in time will what Black Americans did be incorporated into the whole history of America? Because right now, white people don't know anything about our history until Black History Month comes, and then Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass and whoever else is thrown out there. When you really don't know the gist of where we came from, the middle part, and where we plan to go. And incorporating that history now will give our young people, both white and black, a better indication of what the real is all about.
Let's take one more question or comment, and then we'll take closing comments from the panel.
Well, that's my new favorite Spike Lee shirt. I think that the funeral monologue laid it out really, and it deserves quotation, endless quotation. And I think it's really telling that ultimately the conclusion that Spike Lee reaches is the same one that Bell Hooks reaches, and that Johnny mentioned earlier, and that Bub is the only answer.
So I can't think of a better,
Yeah,
no time
that's
on
what I
the
was
law,
thinking.
so, cool.
Come on over there, some deliberations.
Last comment, last thought?
We're gonna end on the note of love.
Yes.
All right, great. Well, I want to thank our awesome panel so much for being here tonight. I knew this